All right, so I'm going to get started, and as you're finishing up with getting the coffee and food and whatnot, and you have a seat, we'll get started. So first of all, thank you everybody for being here. This is very cool. I think there's probably about 10 or so people that emailed last night and this morning and said they couldn't be here, so I'm sorry they're not here, but I think we would have run out of room anyway. So it's nice to see everybody. To me, the most beautiful thing is the places, and we initially talked about having everybody kind of announce where they're from, but there's really just too many people and it would take too much time. But the coolest thing to me really is I sit here and I've watched kind of the evolution of the meditation initiative is to see the people who are here and the organizations and places and families that you represent, which to me just says, you know, people are ready for this and they've been ready, and we just need to continue to work on getting people to work very, very hard to sit and do absolutely nothing for a few minutes, because that's really what we're going to look at, is how do we get everybody to sit and do absolutely nothing for a few minutes. And it really is not going to be any more complicated than that. So hopefully at the end of this day, you're not disappointed thinking I was expecting tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of teaching and training, because the training could really be summed up very briefly. Sit, close eyes, take deep breaths, open eyes, and we're done. So it's not much more complicated than that. If that disappoints anybody, you're free to go. But we're going to walk through all of that in a much more formal manner. I'm going to start with a basic intro of myself. And again, just thanks everybody for being here. First, Sky, thank you. High Tech High, Blair Hatch, who's not here, was my football coach 20 years ago. Thank you for letting us use the space. Very grateful. Thank you to Gail and Sam and the board and everybody else who helped out in bringing food and coffee for 1,000 people. We appreciate it. So I'm going to start with an intro of myself, kind of how I got here a little bit, and then we're just going to walk through really a sample meditation initiative workshop. And what this will give you an idea of is when we go out to a place and we start, what do? Right? So I'll walk through that and then we'll go from there. I'm Jeff, for those who don't know me. I grew up here in San Diego, went to Green School and then Lewis Junior High School and then Patrick Henry. And I went to college out in Arizona when I was 20 years old, studying psychology. I was working at a group home dealing with adolescents who'd been physically, sexually, emotionally abused. As a 20-year-old kid, just dealing with stress, anger, things, life really, a psychology professor said, hey Jeff, you should try this thing called meditation. I didn't know what it was. I really wasn't that interested in it. I tried it. I didn't really like it so much, but nothing else seemed to be working, so I kept trying it, right? And again, this is 17 years ago. I graduated college. When I was working with these kids, I would show up and sitting with, 6 or 7 teenage girls who'd gone through very traumatic experiences. I didn't wire them up. I wasn't testing their brain waves or heart rate. I wasn't trying to prove that anything was changing in them. We would just sit, we would close our eyes, we would breathe for a few minutes, we would open our eyes, and something seemed very different. And again, this is 17 years ago, and this was something that really stuck out in my mind very strongly. So I graduate college, I go off to Philadelphia, get kind of pulled into the business world, in the hustle of making money in business and all that kind of stuff, and eventually said, this isn't what I want to spend the rest of my life doing. And so 2003, I started taking meditation into the prison systems here in San Diego, MCC downtown, Metropolitan Correctional Center, Donovan, Bailey, Calipatria, Las Colinas, Central Jail, from mainline to maximum security level 4 prisons, both mainline as well as the PSU, the Psychiatric Security Unit. 2007, I got a call from a friend of mine who was a counselor over at King Chavez. And she said, Jeff, our kids are angry. They're not doing so well in school. They're getting in trouble. We're doing yoga, but we want to do some meditation. Can you come in and do meditation? I said, sure. So I show up. I lead some meditation for these kids. They enjoy it. I started a Friday morning moms group, which was actually really cool. It was done in English and then translated into Spanish. My Spanish is not so great. So I started working with these moms every Friday morning. And by 2009, I found myself really running around to 25, 30 places a week. And it evolved into going from prisons to hospitals to cancer clinics, working with victims of abuse, domestic violence, working Jewish Family Services, Catholic Charities, Christian youth groups, you name it. And you have a list here, the mission page. You've probably all seen it by now, and from the website. Just a sample of all the places we go to. About 3 years ago, started working in the military environment, dealing with the folks coming back, wounded warriors, PTSD, traumatic brain injury, things like that, out at 32nd Street and Point Loma Naval Base. And so in 2009, I sat there and I realized that we had a lot of people wanting this thing called meditation. I'll say this about 10 times throughout, but it was done for free from the beginning. It's done for free now, and it'll be done for free always, right? And I'll periodically, probably every hour, plug the free part of meditation. So 2009, we put a board together. Joanne Jaffe was a good friend of mine. She was the development director and on the board at Second Chance, which does a lot of work with prison reentry and homeless outreach. And she's just a genius at understanding nonprofits and how to structure things. And I, as Jeff, had left the business corporate world and had no interest whatsoever in building an organization or being corporate anything. But next thing you know, I got a group of people and they all want to do stuff. So it kind of forms into this organization. So we put a board together, formally incorporated as the Meditation Initiative, a 501c3 educational nonprofit that takes meditation into all of these places that I just rattled off. I wanted to kind of just run through that quickly because I'm not here necessarily to talk about me or my experience or anything, because I feel when we lead meditation, we're not there for us. And that's a very important point that I'll just put in there now and we'll come back to later. But when we sit down to lead meditation, it is not for us. And very often we sit to lead meditation, if you've ever done it before, or as a practitioner thinking, I'm going to share with you my practice and I'm going to tell you what I'm all about and I'm going to tell you how I use meditation. That's not what's worked for us, right? So we'll come back to that. But right now we're just going to sit. We're going to walk through a workshop. This is a very advanced audience, I know, as I know many of you. How many of you here have done meditation? Show of hands. So just a couple of you shout out when you do meditation, why? In a single word or two, why do you do meditation? What do you think of when you hear the word meditation? Quiet, centered, peace. What else? Calm, aware. What else? Serenity. What else? Happy. What was that? Monkey? Monkey mind? Right? Release of pain, joy. Who here has never done meditation? There's got to be like one or two. Perfect. So those of you who've never done meditation, when you hear the word, what do you think of? Calm. Peace. Quiet. So you're making this easy for me. Normally when we go out, we're sitting with an audience of people who've never done meditation and you hear all kinds of crazy stuff. Let me touch on this before we start the meditation, and I'm just really giving another couple minutes for anybody who might show up. But what we're going to do is start with a sample workshop. I'll run through a series of what I call frequently asked questions, which are the most common, I feel, in the last 10 years of bringing this into the environment. The most commonly asked questions by people that I see. We'll see what questions you have. We can address those as well. I'll run through a little video of the Meditation Initiative, kind of a brief overview of TMI. But again, I'm not here to say, yay, look at TMI, look how great we are. I don't care about any of that, but I will touch on some of the things we've done. I'll introduce Dr. Paul Sargent. He'll give a beautiful talk on meditation, the effects it has scientifically and on the brain. We'll have a break for lunch, probably 30 to 45 minutes. Then I'll introduce Gail, and she's going to come up as a friend and a volunteer and a board member and talk about her experience a little bit with the Meditation Initiative. After that, we're going to review the 5-minute script, which is what we're in essence going to kind of do right now as a meditation. Right? So we're going to review the script, and then we're going to break up into small groups, and you're going to have time practicing leading meditation. Right? And you're going to realize how ridiculously simple it is to actually lead meditation. Right? And then we'll close with questions, and I'll have some kind of final suggestions for you all as far as what should I do now if I want to lead meditation? Because again, that's why, to my understanding, most of you are here, is you have an interest in bringing meditation into somewhere. So hopefully by the end of the day, you'll be comfortable, you'll feel empowered enough to actually go out and have people close their eyes and breathe comfortably. Right? If I can't do that in 5 hours, then I should quit. All right, so we're going to start with the meditation. A couple things I'll tell you before you start. Nothing's going to happen to you, right? You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. You're not going to figure anything out whatsoever, right? Anyone's mind race all day long? Just racing and racing and racing? This is not going to stop that, unfortunately, right? Your mind is going to continue to race. Don't judge your practice. And when I say don't judge your practice, what I mean is don't sit there thinking, am I doing this right or am I doing this wrong? Right? If you're worried about whether you're doing this right or wrong, then your mind is away from the present moment, so you're just going to sit and breathe. We do enough things all day long that we're judging. We just want to be able to sit and breathe, right? And again, If you wait for this big grand aha moment to happen, thinking that you're going to have some great realization, you're going to be really disappointed, right? All we're looking at with meditation is, how many of you are dealing with stress? Anger, anxiety, sadness, depression. Anyone free from all 5 of those things? Because again, this is your last opportunity to leave, right? Otherwise you're stuck. But if you're dealing with any of those 5 things, that's what we're going to look at, all right? So now we're going to start. Posture. Posture is important because you want to be comfortable, right? We're not going to sit that long, so hopefully you won't fall asleep. We got enough coffee to keep you awake. If you do fall asleep, it's not the end of the world, right? I'm not into the crossing the legs certain ways and holding the fingers certain ways. I'm into our mind staying present, right? Right in your chair as you are is perfect. You can keep the feet flat on the ground. The hands, you can rest them on your knees and your lap, whatever's comfortable, all right? I suggest pushing the stomach forward, allowing the back to straighten. I'll suggest closing the eyes if comfortable. If you're not comfortable with the eyes closed, just kind of pick a spot in front of you and hold your attention on that spot. Again, don't judge your practice and don't expect anything. I'll guide us as we begin. We'll settle into a little silence. Begin with the eyes closed if comfortable. Mouth open or closed, whatever's comfortable. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And eventually settling into a natural rhythm of the breath. Knowing throughout the practice, you'll hear sounds from inside the room, sounds outside. These are not distractions, not disruptions. Simply what's happening around us as we sit. Noticing the mind as it begins to wander, jumping from thought to thought. Gently guide your attention and focus to the stomach or the chest. Breathing in, feel the stomach and chest rise. Breathing out, stomach and chest fall. Simply continuing this practice. Breathing in, follow the breath in. Breathing out, follow the breath out. Expecting nothing from the practice, but to sit and breathe. Noticing the mind as it wanders, lost in thought. Recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention to the breath. Where's your mind? Return attention to the breath. Breathing in, follow the breath in. Breathing out, follow the breath out. Again, taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And when ready, slowly open the eyes. Slowly begin to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, after. Compare this to how you normally feel. Recognize the difference. And realize that any sort of quiet, calm, peace, or any sort of busyness, madness, craziness, whatever you're sitting with in your head right now, however you feel right now, has nothing to do with anything that I said, has nothing to do with how we sit and hold our hands or cross our legs, has nothing to do with the sound of a bell or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with our own mind and our own mind's reaction to an external situation. And what we realize from the practice of meditation is that this is our entire life. Every moment. Things happen, we react. More things happen. More reactions. That's it. All we are working on with meditation is knowing what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way we feel now is very different from how we normally feel. And what we're working on ultimately is closing that gap to where the way we feel now is closer to how we feel more often. Just as driven, just as motivated, just as successful if you want to be, but clear, focused, settled. What it comes down to is when you're happy and in a good mood, where does that come from? Thoughts. When you're angry, miserable, where does that come from? Thoughts. Meditation's not easy. It's not fun. It's not an escape from reality. It's not checking out into La La Land and pretending we're on a boat and sailing down a river and looking at all the birds and trees and flowers and thinking everything is perfect and wonderful. That's not life. Meditation is direct perception into your own mind and your own thoughts. Meditation is free. It takes nothing more than a few moments of your time and a busy racing mind, which most people I know tend to have, myself included. Ultimately, what it comes down to is once we stop trying to change and control and manipulate everything outside of us, which many of us can get very good at doing, and we start working on our mind and our reaction to everything around us, life gets easier, simpler, a little more peaceful, and ultimately nothing really changed except your own mind. That's it. There's nothing more to it than what we just did. How does everybody feel right about now? Calm. What else? At peace. What else? Say again? Inspired. Open. Quiet. How often do we feel this way? Sometimes. Who made you feel quiet, calm, peaceful, open, and inspired? Who made you feel that way? Yourself. Who are you always with? Yourself. So why do we find it so difficult to feel calm and peaceful and quiet? If you don't want to feel calm and peaceful and quiet, you don't have to. I'm not here to tell you how to behave, how to be. If you want to have your mind a mess and crazy and say and do a bunch of stuff that's not too wise, then go for it. I'm not here to tell you how to be. But if you want to spend more time quiet and calm and peaceful and happy, and if you can feel that way in 5 minutes without spending any money, without going anywhere, without taking any medication, without having to get in your car and drive to your peaceful place, if you can get quiet and calm and peaceful right there on your own couch at home where you spend so much time unhappy, why not do that more often? There's all kinds of roadblocks and things we'll get into, but before I go on to anything that I would normally go on to, any thoughts, comments, questions at this point on the meditation practice or what we just did? And again, I'm really just kind of simulating a normal workshop, even though I know many of you here have done meditation practice before. But either way, open it up at this point to any questions you might have about meditation.
Jeff,
Yes.
Maybe not as a participant in a first-time session, but if you continue to meet with groups, to what degree do you continue to have the guidance during the meditation? You gave a very good example
Right.
of how to help us, or if we were first-timers, how to keep us focused. Do you use any kind of sense or feel to know how to do that?
It never changes.
Okay.
Again, and let me preface this now because I know we're going to jump from typical you know, what I have up here, which you have a copy of, and then I'll come back to that, is in essence a sample workshop which can be done in anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour at no charge to everybody, right? And then we would often then work on a weekly group. So we might go to, say, we were talking about San Diego Center for Children earlier. We might go to San Diego Center for Children, run a workshop for all the kids, and then turn that into a weekly group, right? So if I'm understanding your question, at what point does then it maybe alter or change, or do you do things differently? Never. What has made the meditation initiative so successful, and when I say successful, I mean success probably in different terms from how we often view success. Accepted, right, should probably be a more appropriate word, is that it is so simple and it never changes. What you have here also, which we'll go through later, is the 5-minute script. And I've been sitting places every week for a year, or every week for probably 3-4 years, and every single time I or anyone from the Meditation Initiative shows up, it's the same meditation practice over and over and over. There is no next level. There is no, you've achieved this and now we're going to go to the advanced teaching. There's no, all right, I'm going to enter into some higher state of consciousness now. And I recognize all of you come from, you know, various practices, various disciplines, and I'll say this right now. I apologize for anyone that I might offend. And I'm sure, I guarantee I will offend somebody today, and it is not meant intentionally. It is meant to simplify this practice of meditation that we tend to make into something so much greater than what it really actually is, right? So it never gets more advanced. You never change sitting still, breathing, and doing nothing for 5 minutes, right? From our approach, are there hundreds of types of meditation practices? Absolutely. Is the meditation practice, is the meditation initiative practice the only way to practice? No. Is it the best way to practice? No. Is it the right way to practice? No. Is it accepted in the public sector, in a public environment? Absolutely. That is our number one concern, right? Can we walk into these public sector environments, public schools, military, hospitals, prisons, and make them feel comfortable that we're doing nothing other than sitting and breathing, which is what we just did. And I didn't tell them how to feel. I didn't tell them what to think. I didn't tell them what to believe. All I did was created a space for you to close your eyes if comfortable, breathe quietly, guide you as you either fell asleep, right? I mean, it wasn't that long, except for my father, maybe. Everybody stayed awake, right? 5 minutes, you know, maybe you fell asleep, but it's really nothing more than just recognizing my mind is off, come back to the present moment. Meaning that's why I speak during the practice. To do one of two things. Either wake you up because you've fallen asleep, or remind you that you're lost in thought. Do I think anybody in this room sat there completely focused on their breath for like 7 minutes straight? I didn't, right? The practice is recognizing you're lost in thought and coming back to the present moment. As always, it's an expanded answer to your simple question. Yeah. Next question, yeah.
So just to be really clear.
More clear. Thank you.
Even more clear. So if you're in a group and you're doing the breathing and you have the same script,
Yes.
the same words.
Yes.
And it could be for the 7 minutes we just did, or it could be for 30 minutes.
Right.
So through that 30 minutes, you're repeating the
Yes.
basic same script.
Again, I'll preface, which hopefully I'll stop prefacing by saying my suggestions are what for the last, since 2003 when I started taking meditation into the prison. So for 10 years, I've brought meditation into so many public sector environments, right? And I used to do much longer meditation practices, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, depending upon where we were, right? And then all of a sudden, for not even by design, I really haven't planned any of this. This whole thing has just happened by accident, right? Which is part of the beauty of it all. But over time, as I've realized that some environments I walk into, I'll go into a second grade classroom, and I know going in that I've got 5 minutes or 7 minutes. And so it just kind of happened where we started to do meditation in various environments at a much shorter amount of time. And what I realized was that look that everybody has on their face after meditation happened in 3 minutes. I feel, my own ignorant opinion, even more so than it did in 30 minutes. Because in 30 minutes, man, people are asleep. They're asleep, they're on their shopping list, they're on their to-do list. You know, I figure as adults, I'll never lead a meditation more than 20 minutes, right? If you have a regular practice, yeah, you can get 10, 15 minutes in, and then maybe you're like, man, can we just stop already, right? So, but even if it does go longer, yes, I would repeat the same cycle. Your mind's wandering, lost in thought, back to the breath. Your mind's wandering, back to the breath, right? Does that address your...
So week after week, if you had an ongoing group, you would kind of gauge how long it was going to be that week. And
Yes.
it's like, hey, we're here, we're doing this now, and now we're done. Bye.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, and any of our, like Sam, who's here in the back, and he's been taken for probably a year or something like that, if not more, into San Diego Central Jail. Gail, she'll talk later, with the Braille Institute and the Senior Center and the at Temple Emmanuel and one other place I'm forgetting, but many places. Every time you go in there, you get a sense of how much time do I have? What's their attention like? You know, what's the setting like? Am I in a prison where it's really loud and everybody's screaming and maybe I have to alter it a little bit? So you kind of feel that out, right? I'm not here to tell you, we don't own meditation, so I'm not here to tell you this is what you need to do, right? I don't consider myself a meditation teacher at all. I consider myself someone who practices meditation and creates space for other people to sit and practice meditation. So my suggestion to lead successfully is to have that same view, that you're not there to teach them anything. You're simply there to hold the space for them to begin to wake up to all the craziness that's in our own heads. Right? Anyone have craziness in your head, ever? Right? Maybe there's one here who doesn't. You know, I think Josh has got none. He's solid. So, yes?
When you're eating, are you meditating simultaneously and at the same time monitoring the group?
Myself personally?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I first started doing this in groups, I was really, I felt like I was trying to lead in a controlling manner, right? And over the years, as I started to sit in front of more and more people, and I realized now, to this point, for the last probably 5, 6, 7 years, like this morning, that was my meditation practice. None of you were even here, right? All I am doing is verbalizing my meditation practice. Because I feel, as someone who's going to lead or facilitate meditation, and we'll touch on this later too, you need to have your own practice. And the less you are trying to control and manipulate their experience and you just speak out loud your practice, chances are, I feel, that's going to be more successful. I mentioned this to Gail yesterday. Years ago, I was leading a meditation at nighttime. I was exhausted. It was like a 40-minute meditation. I started to fall asleep myself. And it was a really funny experience because I realized when I opened my eyes after that nobody else knew I was asleep, so it didn't even matter. But yes, do your practice. Early on, and when we get into kind of looking at the script, and I'll mention this now and later, the script is a guide. It is a guide that, through a student initially and Gail and a few others, put together basically, oh yeah, Jeff is saying the same thing every single time, every single day, every single place. The script doesn't change, back to your question, whether it's a second grade classroom, a prison, or a senior center. The script is the same from what I lead, right? So that script that's put together is based off of that. But it doesn't mean you have to follow it word for word. So early on, as you begin to, once everybody closes their eyes, and we'll practice this in the afternoon, you can read the script. You know, and as anyone else who's done it, they'll tell you that you eventually, you begin to know it, and it works, Yes? Did that answer your question? Yeah.
Have you, since you bring this into a public setting,
yes,
have you experienced any issues with meditation's inevitable Buddhist association?
Never once. Ever. So the question was, since I bring this into a public setting, have I ever experienced, how did you say the last part?
Meditation's inevitable Buddhist association.
Meditation's inevitable Buddhist associations. Never.
Because they're dealing with that up in Encinitas right now.
Yes. I figured it would take only an hour till we got into that. Right? So okay, is that it? Okay. So let me touch on a couple things. About 3 years ago, and for those who didn't hear, he mentioned the Encinitas issue, which is going on, which is a school suing, parents suing for yoga practice that's going on in the school. Right? I'll probably touch on that in a second. So the first part, about 3.5, 4 years ago now probably, I had a meeting at Crawford High School. And this was with the dean of students. Her name was Angela. And I showed up, and I grew up, as I mentioned earlier, I grew up here in San Diego, and I, going to Patrick Henry, knowing the neighborhood and everything, and I'm thinking, I'm going into Crawford. Awesome, we're going to get kids at Crawford to meditate. This is going to be beautiful. And I went in there all fired up. I probably even put on real nice clothes, and I went in there thinking that I had to like pitch this dean of students on why these kids should do meditation practice. And about a minute into my spiel, she cut me off, and she said, Jeff, you don't need to convince me that meditation is good or that we need meditation. We need this. And that taught me a very big lesson back then, that I was never going to go into a facility or an environment and have to, or even try to, convince them that they need it or that it is this or that, right? All I can say a lot, but a couple things I'll say is that this script specifically is golden, right? I don't know how else to say it. If anybody ever wanted to test it, they could test it in the years we've done it, right? So I've got 10 years of the practice of this script, basically, never once been questioned or has there ever been a concern in a public sector from this script, right? What I'll also say is that well, let me jump to the Encinitas thing for a minute, right? So for those who don't know, parents, right, upset school, doing yoga, all that kind of stuff, right?
Could you be a little more specific? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so there's, I don't follow much of it, but the general idea is that in Encinitas, there are parents who are suing the school because of a yoga program that is going on in the school. And they're suing for whatever reasons, right? Because they don't want yoga in their school. And my guess is it has something to do with the religious nature of the practice. We're not here to debate right or wrong, good or bad, right? I mean, you guys can do that if you want, but the point is that when you look at yoga, there are words, and this is just Jeff's view, right? There are words that are said in yoga that are not in English that freak people out because they don't know what it is. That's it. I'm not here to get into political debates on all that, but there are words that are spoken in English, or not in English, in yoga, that if you're not into that and you don't know what it is, and your son or daughter comes home from school and says, mommy, daddy, whatever, and they start saying all these foreign words, and I learned this in my yoga class, maybe a parent's going to get concerned, right? I don't have kids. I'm not here to give parental advice either. What I'm here to say is that what the Meditation Initiative does is none of that. We don't use any of those words. It's all done in simple English. It deals with anger, stress, anxiety, sadness, depression, and our inability to pay attention and stay focused. That is what we look at with the Meditation Initiative. Again, this training being a little unique in a sense that I'm not necessarily here to train you or lead you in meditation. You're all here because you have places you want to bring it into, right? So the question is, well, wait a minute. This hospital is going to be concerned with it, right? As soon as you get into this debate that we're having right now, all these red flags go up. Well, what about this? What about this? What about this? And then you never even do the meditation. My experience in going into hospitals and settings like that is I do as I did today, and again, I try to model the workshop similar even though the questions are going in this direction. I do about a 3-minute intro myself, run through that real quick, and just start the practice. UCSD said, Jeff, can you come up and do a lecture on meditation? I said, no. I can come up and lead a meditation practice. Because once you lead the practice, there's no concerns, right? And the last thing I'll say on that, again, from our experience, right? The last thing I'll say on that is the whole list that you have there on the mission page of all the places we go to, I've never contacted one place and said, hey, can we do meditation, right? We don't have some back office development team trying to, stir up business and clients, right? For what? It's all free anyways. We just want everybody to sit and breathe. So everyone on that list has come to us. What that means is they're already at a place where they're okay with it. If we take this approach of I'm going to share meditation to people who are ready to learn meditation, then beautiful. But if we try to get into this battle, you're going to lose every time, my opinion. It's never come up. It'll come up here as I see 8 hands raised, right? I don't even know. Who wants to go first? Go ahead.
Did you end up leading meditation at Crawford?
Yeah. Yeah, I went. They had me out for 2 years. I went into the math class a couple times. Then 2 years in a row, I went to their CASI exam, which was the California High School Exit Examination. And so I went out at like 6:40 in the morning, 2 days in a row, with about 400 students in the auditorium right before they went into the exam. 2 mornings in a row, 2 years in a row. And that actually was a great experience when I learned how to not lead meditation for 400 people the first time. Because I sat there thinking, all right, there's 400 people out there. If you ever find yourself in a setting, I've sat with one person and I've sat with 800 people, right? And if you find yourself in a setting where you're leading for a large amount of people, I suggest not trying to connect with 800 people, right? Or 400 people. That's very difficult. What I learned the first day was, there's 7 people in this front row. If I just focus on those 7, and there's a glaring light on you, you can't see anything anyways. But if you focus on these 7, chances are if you can connect with these 7, then it's good, be all right. As a leader of meditation, as a facilitator of meditation, I cannot stress enough the importance of letting go of trying to control the outcome or the experience, and letting go or trying to control what you're trying to convince people of. We're not convincing people of anything. Nothing. There's nothing to prove, right? You're just creating a space for people to sit and breathe. And if places, and I'm sure there's places out there today that will have an issue with that, and then that's maybe a place that you aren't ready to bring meditation into yet. Yeah.
Jeff, I noticed that you've not used the term mindfulness.
No.
Which is common in the culture and often associated with meditation.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
You already know my thoughts, but thanks for plugging it. Yeah. And I didn't ask him to say that either. Again, Jeff speaking on behalf of Jeff speaking on behalf of the founder and executive director of the Meditation Initiative. My thoughts on mindfulness are, Jon Kabat-Zinn is a genius, right? For those who don't know, Google Jon Kabat-Zinn, or MBSR, Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction. It's a beautiful program. He's a genius. It's expensive. Again, no offense to anyone here who does it. I'm sure there's somebody in this room who does MBSR, right? The word mindfulness, he has, and I think he's a doctor as well, right? I mean, he's a PhD or, yeah. He's a genius, smart guy in the practice and the study and everything. And what he's done, in my opinion, is he's called it mindfulness-based stress reduction because that has made it acceptable in the medical environment, for one, right? I feel, and while I think he was wise to do it, that he used mindfulness because he had a fear of what people would view the word, or how they would view the word meditation. That he was afraid, again, I've never talked to him, this is my foolish assumption, that he figured if I call it mindfulness and not meditation, more people will be okay with it, right? Even today, even a lot of you here, I want to learn how to teach deep breathing in my hospital. I want to learn how to teach, relaxation techniques in my school. There's this fear of the word Meditation Initiative. What's the name of our organization? The Meditation Initiative. My view is there is nothing wrong with the word meditation. And I feel mindfulness, as beautiful as it is just a way to kind of remove the word meditation. And wonderful. For all the millions of people that Jon Kabat-Zinn has meditating now, that's beautiful, right? My approach, and the approach that rolls into the Meditation Initiative, is that meditation is concentration and focus on the present moment, right? If you can concentrate and focus on the present moment, what are you not focused on? The past and the future. And when you focus on the past and the future, how does that tend to make you feel? Worried. All right, I'm going to jump to the very famous Meditation Initiative curriculum. I'm not much of an artist. This is us all happy. Wonderful questions. Strategic, political, and none about meditation. I mentioned these words earlier. Anger, depression, sadness. So I think it was Scripps. They said, Jeff, we need a curriculum so our staff, doctors, nurses, can get credits for coming to these workshops. I did, I think, 2 or 3 years. So I put this together just to show you I'm not kidding. right? Anger, depression, sadness. When we feel anger, when we feel sadness, when we feel depression, at what point in time are we usually focused on? Something that happened when? Past. Not always, but very often. I'm angry now because I'm thinking about something in the past. Depression, sadness, past. When we feel stress, anxiety, fear, worry, where's our mind? Future, right? Not always, but often. I feel stressed now because of this exam I'm about to take. All you got to do is sit with a bunch of high school kids. You know how much stress they're under? I mean, we do know because we were all there, but I think sometimes we forget. These 15-year-old kids have so much stress and anxiety, it's not even funny. I was at Albert Einstein one time and we finished a meditation and a kid said, I asked afterwards, how do you feel? Doing the same script. And his 12-year-old kid, I think, said, I feel less destructive. Right? That's a very strong word for a 12-year-old to say and to feel. And he meant it, I could tell. Right? So anger, depression, sadness. Coming back, Bob, to the meditation question. This is how I view meditation. Concentration and focus. As I just mentioned, if you concentrate and focus on the present moment using the breath or a shoe or a bottle of water, you can take this into your facilitation as well. Well, why are we using the breath? Right? Why do you think I choose the breath? 2 reasons. What are they?
You always have it.
Do you always have it?
It's free.
It's free. You're catching on. Nice, Gloria. Thank you. Right? You always have it. Right? Because often we think meditation is this place where we got to go by the beach. We got to go find this, setup, and we got to create this perfect little happy, peaceful place, right? Your peaceful place is in your own mind. So we use the breath as a trigger. Working within the PTSD environment, and Paul will talk about, Dr. Sargent will talk about this later, but the breath is a trigger, right? Wouldn't it be nice if we could just focus on our breath and all of a sudden everything would be okay? How easy would that be? It's not, but that's what this practice is. But you could stare at your breath, or you could stare at that coffee cup. Bottom line is if you're focused on one thing, you're not focused on everything else. This is concentration and focus, right? The hardest part discipline and motivation. So again, most of you here having a meditation practice. Have you ever done your meditation and then kind of fallen off for a while, and then you fall back on, then you fall off for a while? Yes. The motivation. Let's start there. What's the motivation to practice? What else? What do you think? Why do we do meditation? For whom? Whom? I'm not sure. Ourselves. That's it? That's it? Man, we're a selfish group. To be better people, which affects whom? Others. This is our motivation. Our motivation is, and I'm speaking for myself, my head's a mess. I want to slow down and breathe and be calm. I don't want to be angry. I want to feel okay. Have you ever been angry? When you're angry and you take that into your day, how does that affect everybody else you encounter? Do you like dealing with people who are angry? Do you like dealing with people who are stressed, anxious, depressed, sad? No, it's tough. So yes, we start. Our motivation is, I need to take care of me. I need to help my mind, my mental, emotional health and well-being. But ultimately, that has an impact on every single person you encounter. Family, friends, loved ones, colleagues, strangers, the person in front of you at the grocery store who's taking too long, right? Everybody. If you take care of your mind and your reaction to all the stuff around us, things get a little bit easier. That's your motivation. Where's the discipline? What's the discipline? If I told you all tomorrow, starting today for the next, 2 months, you need to meditate every day for 40 minutes, what are you going to tell me? No way. If I tell you 20 minutes, maybe I'd get, a few more, right? So wake up in the morning, right? Did you all brush your teeth today? Maybe, right? let me rephrase that. Have you brushed your teeth this week, right? Do you all know where your toothbrush is? Well, I did this at college class one time, and I said, do you know where your toothbrush is? And the kid pulled out his backpack and said, yeah, it's right here. I was done. Why do you know where your toothbrush is? It's a habit. Use it every day. right? You could tell me what, where it is right now, how much toothpaste is squeezed out of the toothpaste thing, whatever. You wake up in the morning, you start your day, you brush your teeth, you got your coffee, you're not even awake yet, and you're just like brushing your teeth, and there's a fire in the house, but you got to get your coffee, right? And I say take 5 minutes and take care of your mind. What do you think most people say when I say take 5 minutes, take care of your mind in the morning? What's that? I can do that. A very advanced crowd here. But most people say, I don't have time. I don't have 5 minutes. I'll do it later. And then later happens, and then you're exhausted. And then we say we're going to do it before we go to sleep, but then it just puts us to sleep, right? Which I'll talk about sleep later probably. Make time, right? This ties back to, which I'm constantly trying to bring it back to the practice, is if you are going to lead meditation anywhere, for anyone, I suggest you take 5 minutes every single day and do your meditation practice. Not 20 minutes, not 40 minutes, right? Not on the beach. I mean, you can do it on the beach. But at home, where you are in your stuff. 5 minutes right there. Take 5 minutes every single morning. If you have to create a condition, right? Stephen Covey, I used to read all that, 7 Habits, highly successful people. He used to say it takes 21 days to create a habit. Do this 5 minutes. I call this kind of a 3-week challenge. 5 minutes for 3 weeks straight. And then take a week off. Why do you think I suggest taking a week off? You'll notice a difference. What did you say in the back there?
See what you're missing.
See what you're missing, right? This ties into discipline. Would you ever go 3 weeks without brushing your teeth? Why not? You don't need to answer that, right? Nobody wants to talk to you, nothing. You wouldn't go 3 weeks without brushing your teeth, so why go 3 weeks without taking care of your mind? We've gone a lifetime without taking care of our mind, many of us, right? To me, meditation is not just meant to be, everything's a mess, my head's a mess, I got lots of problems, so I'm going to go meditate and make everything okay. To me, it's a very proactive way of taking care of your mental, emotional health, right? We spend so much time in the morning, right? Combing my hair, brushing my teeth, what clothes am I going to wear, making sure everything looks okay before we go out of the house. The mind is the foundation of every single thing we do in our lives. Everything starts with our thoughts. Take time to get to know your thoughts. Everybody will be happy. Everybody will benefit. This is your motivation, and this is your discipline. People always ask me, how do I get somebody else to meditate? Right? How do I get my husband, my wife, my partner, my kids, whatever? What do you think the best way is to get other people to meditate? Be the example. Yeah. Do it yourself. Absolutely. That's the best way. Somebody just the other day said, how do I get my dad to meditate? I said, good luck. Right? You do the practice. Not my dad. I mean, my dad definitely good luck, but, right? You do the practice, right? Your family, loved ones, they'll know. They'll see the difference. And then they're like, wow, how come I'm yelling at you? How come you're not yelling back? They're probably not going to like that so much, when you don't yell back. But that's when you start to see the difference. We don't meditate. I want to make this point very clear. We don't meditate to be good at meditation, right? We're not meditating to be good meditators. So what if we can all sit here for 5 minutes and be quiet and calm and peaceful if the moment we walk out that door, our head is a mess, right? The world out there didn't just finish their meditation, and they don't care that you just finished yours. They're going 1,000 miles an hour, and that world is waiting for you when you enter it, right? That's what we're taking into our lives. A clear, calm, quiet mind. I usually suggest people try this. It's like coffee, right? Which probably 80% of us here are drinking, right? Myself included. We drink coffee in the morning. Why? Wakes us up. Gets us going if you drink coffee or tea or whatever. Noon, 2 o'clock for you coffee drinkers, what happens? Crash. You need another coffee. Nighttime, you're so wired on coffee, doesn't even matter. You're drinking coffee and it just, it doesn't even affect you anymore, right? Use meditation the same way. That's my suggestion. Small doses. A couple minutes in the morning, noon, 2 o'clock, walk outside, find a place, sit, close your eyes, breathe. Anyone have a desk they sit at all day long they hate sitting at? That's your perfect place to meditate, right? Right there at that desk you don't want to be at. Take 3 minutes, take 5 minutes, just sit and breathe. That's where we have to learn to be okay. If we're always running, if we're always escaping, right? I'll talk about escapes for a minute. Anyone have a question on that? What do we use for escapes? Stress? Shout them out. Again, I'm not here to get into morals and tell you how to live your life. Food, what else? drugs, what else? TV, cigarettes, video games, Facebook, right? All kinds of things. My point is not that any of these are good or bad or right or wrong. My point is that we're constantly looking for something to take us out of our head. How many of you like sitting in silence? A couple of you. You're all serious practitioners, right? For many people, again, if you're here because you want to facilitate meditation, I can promise you that probably 90% of the people you're going to sit with who've never done this, they're not okay sitting in silence. Sitting in silence is painful. Because when you sit in silence, what are you stuck with? Your thoughts. And what are we always trying to run away from? Our thoughts, right? Again, for all of us advanced practitioners here, we all know that I'm going to sit with my craziness. I tell high school kids, right? If I go in a classroom with 30 kids, right? And when I was here, about a month ago with Sky at, High Tech High, and these kids, I had 50 kids in there. And same thing I told them. If you have, say, 30 kids, you got 10 kids that love it, right? 10 kids that absolutely hate it. And 10 that are somewhere in the middle. And trust me when I say that I would have been the worst of the 10 that hated it, right? The ones cracking the knuckles and throwing things and talking and just having no interest, and you're trying to sway everybody else who's maybe on the fence, and then you have, your third of the people that are kind of into it, right? What I tell the kids after, and I spent 3 years at Monarch School, working with homeless kids, right? Homeless teens. A lot of them hate silence. They can't sit in silence. It's torture, right? But for 10 minutes, they would sit there, and this time I was doing it, and I would still probably take it to 10 minutes with them, right? It just depends on the group, but with them I was doing it for 10 minutes, right? And what I would tell them at the end of 10 minutes was, if you hated this, absolutely hated it, now you know what it's like to hate something and sit with it. Because when we hate something, how long do we sit with it? We can't even sit with the radio station on a song we don't like for more than 2 seconds without changing it. Imagine real heavy stuff that's going on in our lives. We're constantly escaping from it. So when you sit in a little bit of silence, all you're getting is what's up here, right? This is what, as a practitioner, we're learning to be okay with. And learning that, yes, for 10 minutes I was angry and furious, but I didn't get up and punch a wall, right? I didn't get up and yell and scream. I didn't get up and, go use or anything like that. I've worked a lot in the recovery environment, and I can probably touch on that at some point. But I want to demonstrate something right now. Anyone have a question on that thus far? I want to demonstrate something, just an example, right? Again, our approach to meditation. So I've been doing this. I got into this 17 years ago, and I've been doing this every day for probably 9, 10 years, right? Anywhere from 5 minutes to 20 minutes every day for 9, 10 years, right? My mind stays focused on my breath for like 2 seconds, 3 if I'm lucky. So you got that to look forward to, right? That's my pat on the back encouragement. Maybe you can keep your mind attention on your breath for more than 3 seconds, right? And then you can tell me what's going on, because I don't know what that's like. But here's what happens in meditation practice. You're sitting there. And to me, it's very visual, right? As far as thought arises, hunger, recognize hunger. Let that thought go, come back to the breath. Next thought arises, hunger. Recognize that thought, let it go, back to the breath. It's a constant breath in, breath out, and thoughts just flying through. Right? Like the plane that's about to go overhead. It's going to get louder and louder and louder, and then it's going to get quieter and quieter and quieter. They just keep coming, the thoughts. This is what I'm working on. The releasing of every thought as it arises. What I don't want to do, thought arises. Hunger. I'm hungry. What do I want to eat? I'm going to go to Poke's. Yes, I want a burrito. Yes, I want cheese. Yes, I want sauce. Yes, I want chips. Yes, I'd like a drink. How much is this going to cost? Yes, I'd like more. And so, from one single thought, you've just run with like a 5-minute story in your head. And what are you doing? Nothing. You're just sitting there. And now, I'm probably more hungry because I just sat there for 5 minutes thinking about the burrito I want to eat, right? Why is this important, other than some ridiculous story? Why is this important? What do we do all day long? Think. When you're angry, what does one thought of anger turn into? Before it even goes to that, one thought of anger turns into what? Another thought. 2 thoughts. Becomes 3, 4, 5, etc. Next thing you know, one thought of anger becomes 5 hours of anger. 5 hours of anger becomes 5 years of anger. 5 years of anger becomes 40 years of anger. And we can't let it go. And we spend 40, 50 years angry. We can't let it go. This is so hard. This stuff is not easy. This is not, here's a pill and everything's going to be better, right? This is not meditate for a week and all of a sudden all your problems are going to be solved. No, this is a lifelong practice of learning to be present. So when you go through your day, right, you think someone's going to say something to you today that you don't like? Possibly. What's your response going to be when they do that? That's why we do this practice. So we can take this into our day-to-day life, right? I'll touch on recovery for a minute right now, just to draw an example from anybody here who wants to bring this into the recovery environment. So the 11th step of recovery is prayer and meditation, right? So I was doing meditation in a prison for years, and it would be the Bible study class followed by the meditation class. And these guys would come in with their Bibles, and they were, many of them in recovery, right? And they would talk about what it's like to do prayer and meditation, right? We would talk about everything I've learned. I'm really not that smart. Everything I've learned from paying attention to the people that I sit with. They teach me. Everything I'm saying right now, I've learned from everybody I've sat with. And somehow I've been able to put it back out there to where hopefully it makes sense and we can use it in some way. But what I learned there from these guys initially with the prayer and meditation was they're going to do their prayer. Whoever they pray to, whoever they think their maker, creator, wherever they think they're going, whatever, that's fine. But if when they go into prayer, if they are angry and upset, and if they're thinking about the pizza they'd rather be eating, and they're not focused on their prayer, don't you think whoever they're praying to is going to know? Right? I'm sure many of you in some form or another have done some sort of prayer or whatever you want to call it, right? Maybe, maybe not, doesn't matter. But the reality is, if you were clear, if you were calm, if you were focused, right? For about 2 years, and even still a little bit now, we would go into Jewish temples on Friday nights. And we would lead meditation with the rabbis in the congregation prior to Friday night service. Do you know why the rabbis wanted this? They wanted for themselves to be clear and calm. And someone said open before, and open. They wanted the congregation of people they were sitting with to not be sitting there on Friday night thinking about the week they just had, right? They wanted the congregation to just relax a little bit so then they could go into their prayer, into whatever their spiritual religious practice was. That's for everybody else to worry about. Our focus has only been, can you be calm and quiet and still for 5 minutes, right? That's hard. Second example I want to give about recovery is there was a guy up in La Jolla. It was a sober living home, and he had been in there about 3-4 weeks. And he had been taught from recovery that once you have your first drink or use for the first time, basically they're told, don't drink, don't use the first time. Because as soon as you drink or use for the first time, what happens from there? Drink or use for the second time, and it's all downhill, right? So as he's 3-4 weeks into this meditation practice, once a week, the same thing every single time, he said to me one morning, he said, Jeff, I'm starting to get this. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, he told me about what he's taught about not using or drinking for the first time. He said, everything you're telling me about meditation is to recognize each thought and let it go. Because what he said to me was, before I use for the first time, I'm angry. And where does my anger come from? Thinking. He said, so if I can learn to catch that first thought of anger and let it go, and not let anger become 1 thought, 10 thoughts, 3 hours of thoughts, then where he says, well, screw it, I'm just going to go drink. Keeps him sober. Is this easy? No. Does it take practice? Yes. So if you're going to lead, have your own practice, right? Begin to understand how it's affecting your life. And then just sit and allow people to have their own experience with it. Any questions at this point? Yeah.
I'm surprised about the 5 minutes. This is, I haven't taught any meditation, but just for my own practice, I know it takes like 5 or 10 minutes for my mind to settle down. The first, and then I get to the point where I just surrender, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be meditating here. So I guess my question is, it just seems like all the benefits that you just described, there would be more benefits for a longer period of time.
Right. And that's a very individual thing. Again, my focus is probably 80% of the people that we sit with, and maybe it'll be for those of you who want to lead, they're new to meditation. They've never done meditation, right? If you start them off slow, to me, psychologically, it's a heck of a lot, you got a greater chance. You have a greater chance of getting them to sit for 3 to 5 minutes and enjoy it, right? And then want to do it longer. I'm not saying that if you sit longer, that's bad. But the average person, I feel, in my experience, is not going to want to sit for that much longer. They're not going to make the time. More important is the habit. Kind of going back to that toothbrush example. Make it a habit. Then if on your own you want to sit longer, great. If you want to sit for 20, 30 minutes, if it takes your mind 5 minutes just to settle, and then you can enjoy sitting in that settled space, beautiful. But my suggestion, if you're leading it to people who are new, then to not have them sit for 20 minutes, because after about 7 minutes, they're going to be either asleep or thinking, when is this done? You know? Even as practitioners, many of us are of meditation, I'm sure we've all sat there at some point in time and said, I just wish this would stop. Because we reach a point where we're trying to focus. I give the kind of a metaphor of tug of war, right? Imagine the game tug of war. That's what's going on in our head. And can you constantly come back to the present moment? So I'm not against longer practice, but for new people, I think it's going to be torture for them. Yeah, yes. Go ahead in the back and then, yeah.
Starting meditation in a practice where they'd start with 30-second sessions, and they do like 3 or 4 of them, and then go to like 2 minutes. And I definitely see the benefit that or realize the benefit that you're talking about.
Yes.
Even 30 seconds, I found myself swamped, you know, and that bell dang, and that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. And for us, for our practice, sometimes you're driving, you know, you pull over or something, you're going into a big meeting, you're stressed out, you're angry. All you have is 2 minutes. All you have is 30 seconds. All you have is 3 deep breaths. We used to say, you know, just take 3 deep breaths. Sometimes that's all you have. Habit and routine will then allow you to sit longer if you want. Yes?
Jeff, you may have covered this one way or another already, but I understand from some of the persons who have led a lot of meditations that there is a conundrum, you might say, that there are some folks who are just so much into their head and so much into their thinking that this is just a pass for them. They
Yes.
just can't get with them at all. And how do you relate to that?
Yeah, I very carefully. It's you know, a couple ways to look at it. As I alluded to a little bit earlier, there's lots of types of meditation. Guided meditations, visualizations, you know, you can repeat words over and over again, all that kind of stuff. Some people, silence is just not going to work, and they need to hear a voice, or they need to listen to music or something like that. I don't view those as wrong, but what I really, especially if it's someone I'm sitting with for a week, right, or a week after week, I really try to encourage them to work on sitting in silence and maybe just keep it shorter for them, right? And knowing that that's going to be painful a little bit. But if we're always escaping from that noise, right? The problem is not the noise. What's the problem? Not you, whoever said that, right? The problem is what we do with that noise. So I think for the people that it's most difficult, right? There was a guy, I'm not going to tell the story, but if it's just no way, right? If there's just no way that they're ever going to sit in silence for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, then maybe speak more often, right? Or maybe do a more of a guided practice with them. You know, most of you here have some experience, so you can think of ways to work that in. I can just share with you what our experience has been is that I've sat with thousands of people who are, you know, tortured in silence. And they're always going to be tortured in silence until they can learn to be okay with silence. And they're always going to be escaping from something until they can learn to be okay. Yeah? Yes?
What about children with ADHD
or adults with
autism spectrum
ADHD?
disorder? Yeah.
Yeah, so I walked into King Chavez one time, and there was it's a classroom, probably all of them had been diagnosed with ADD or ADHD, right, in this specific classroom, and I was there every week. And I would go in, I was there early one day, maybe 10, 15 minutes early. I was just kind of hanging out, waiting. I saw 2 kids playing chess, right? Again, there could have been a fire in that building. They would not have moved their attention from that chessboard. They were so focused. If you would have watched these two kids for 10 minutes, you wouldn't have thought they have ADD or ADHD, right? I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I don't understand the way the brain works. I don't study that. Dr. Paul Sargent, who'll be here, does, and he can talk about that type of stuff. But in response to your question, I feel even with ADD and ADHD, the 3 to 5 minutes of sitting and even fidgeting, but not taking it to where you're running, is okay. What we have to abandon and let go of is our expectation as leaders, right? You know how many times I've led meditation where somebody is constantly, cracking their knuckles, chewing their gum, on their phone. Let go of trying to create a perfect, quiet, still, peaceful place. If they have ADD and ADHD, they can also sit in a chair and breathe, right? Is it going to be challenging? Absolutely. We're not here to fix them, right? This isn't medication, right?
Even if they're on medication.
Right? A lot of the guys I work with, PTSD, dealing with, heavy meds as well as meditation. If you're on meds, meditation is not going to hurt. Anyone here have trouble sleeping? Why do you think you have trouble sleeping? Mind's racing. Try this before you sleep. Take 5 minutes. Sit at the edge of the bed. Deep breath in, deep breath out. Deep breath in, deep breath out. Deep breath in, deep breath out. I've worked in so many different environments that I've never yet found an environment where somebody should not do this or where it's made things worse. And we can talk maybe later about more specific techniques or things you can try with them. Maybe more physical types of meditation, walking meditations, things like that. Absolutely. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. Yeah. Yeah.
Meditation with children who have ADHD or ADD, it helps them to actually clarify and strengthen their focus.
Sure. That's, again, my observation, absolutely. I'm just not clinically, certified or qualified to address that question.
Yeah, I developed
but
one with my son.
If you are, then beautiful.
When he was younger, and
yeah.
it really helped to improve processes.
Absolutely.
Jack, is there a reason why you didn't use the bell?
What bell? Why use a bell? My focus is I want everybody everywhere to meditate for free. Anything that will give somebody the thought of, is this something else? Right? There are 1,000,001 things, and you could sit and you could analyze just me and how I'm presenting this. This is what I take into the public sector. The people who are already into meditation through whatever, journeys they're on, they're already into it. You don't need to convince them. They're cool with it. But what about the people that are not cool with it because of the stereotypes that there are around meditation, right? Sit in chairs, wear regular clothes, tell people to breathe, close their eyes if they're comfortable, and be done. If you have other agendas, I don't mean you specifically, but if you have other agendas or other reasons you want to do meditation practice, or you want to make it for some other reason, then, I was going to say, God bless you, go for it. That's up to you. All I can do is stand here and say, why have we been successful at bringing this into the public sector when there are other things going on, that are not okay? And this is not the audience I'm trying to get to meditate, right? All of you have an audience that you would love, right, to do meditation. And if you sit there with all kind of gadgets, what do you think they're going to focus on? The gadgets, right? What did I tell you to focus on? Your breath. What did I sit in? A chair. Where are we at right now? A school, in a room, at tables. Like a classroom. Are we in a circle? No. Are there any candles lit? No. Do we have a bell? No. Is any of that stuff necessary? No. That's my focus. Yeah.
This might be jumping ahead a little bit, but I'm sure a lot of us in here have a place in mind that we want to take meditation
yes.
into, or have some ideas about it. Do you have opportunities for places where
yeah.
you need volunteers?
Yeah, and this is why I'm not, there's reasons I got into this meditation world. I'm not much of a planner, And even though there's a whole outline up here and everything, I don't really think I've looked at it more than like twice because we'll jump around. So I'll jump to something that I was going to talk about later now, just to touch on that briefly, is that the first kind of handful of years of the meditation initiative was, hey, look at what we're doing. We want you to come in and be an outreach court volunteer for us, and we're going to help train you and help you go into all these places, right? I'll probably talk more about that later. But what I realized is that takes a lot of time, a lot of resources, and not everybody wants to just run around and do things for free, right? And that's what we want. So instead of trying to bring people in and say, we're going to make you a TMI, outreach volunteer meditation leader, the approach here with this kind of train the trainer workshop, the first time we've done this, right? So I'll look back after and realize everything I didn't do or shouldn't have done, and realize, and still it would have been beautiful, and realize that you have places you want to go to, right? We can help you there. Or if you're interested in working with the Meditation Initiative, we can talk about that as well. But I think that the better approach, we as a board, what we've looked at, is the best way to get everybody to meditate for free. I mean, look at all the people who are here. And this was just from one little email that said, hey, we're going to do a Train the Trainer workshop. And everybody was here, if I understand correctly, unless you got like dragged here for some reason, which is possible, right, to one or two of you, is that you have somewhere you want to take this, whether it's with kids, whether it's in your hospital. Again, I was going to have everybody kind of tell your organization, but I'm not. So we can talk more about that, absolutely. But that's not the focus here. The focus is not, look at us, look how great we are, and you need to join us, and then give us a bunch of money. No. The focus is you've got people that are stressed out, and you want to help them. Help them. Xavier. And this is Xavier. He's my beautiful dear friend who's, filming this craziness. Yes?
Do you have any breaks scheduled?
Breaks, yes. Probably pretty soon. From the cameraman. Yes, as a matter of fact. I'll take one more question if there is one, and then we'll have a break. Thank you. You need some water or anything?
Jeff,
yeah.
In regard to the last question, is there a way that facilitators stay in touch with TMI? Or
email
get support or just
Yeah, the idea with all of this was that we're going to, which is what the second half of this will really get into, we want to kind of empower you to feel comfortable leading, and then very happy to, myself or others within TMI, to work with you at your environment. We recognize that some of us have been doing this for years, and maybe we're comfortable, but some of you might not be. And so to definitely work with you or do almost like client site visits, so to speak, where we'll come out, work with you, help you facilitate, help you lead, absolutely. Yeah. This, in essence, the workshop that's up here that you have a copy of. Again, when we go to a place for the first time, this is about the 30-minute to an hour workshop. From conventions for taking care of your diabetes to 500 people to UCSD to all these places we do a workshop, or just your office, any environment we'll come in and do a workshop. And that, in essence, from all the questions you've asked, we pretty much covered, which is usually what happens. But that gives you an idea of what we would do when we go out to a place for a first time, and then that often will turn into a weekly session. I do want to I'll walk through these and we'll start with questions. There was a question about kids. Actually, a couple questions about little kids during the break. Do we change the language? Do I change the language when I'm sitting with little kids? Slightly. In essence, when I'm sitting with high school or younger, right? College, not so much, but high school or younger. What did I say what to follow? I said, when breathing in, feel the stomach and chest rise. Breathing out, feel the stomach and chest fall. Kids, just stomach. You don't want to say chest around high school kids, right? Just, but all thought is gone, right? Or adults, apparently. And also for the little ones, right? As I just said, I'll say belly. For the real little ones, I mean, I've sat with 3, 4, 5-year-olds, right? And even if you're doing 30 seconds to a minute, you can tell them, put your hands on your belly. And when you breathe in, feel the belly rise and feel the belly fall, right? Little kids, you get creative. Back in the day, we would, tell some stories and have them, picture animals or eating ice cream. You can playful. I'm not here with all the answers, right? I have no authority on anything other than experience. That's it. There's no letters after my name. I've got no books, nothing. Just experience. And so all I'm sharing with you is my experience. And a sensitivity always, which is what I think is so beautiful about this environment, is one of the things we realized when we talked about the meditation initiative going into other places is that it always helps if you have what I'd call a subject matter expert, right? In other words, if you're working with teachers, for example, high school teachers, it helps if you have somebody who is a high school teacher kind of on board, who understands what you're doing, and they know how to apply this within their high school teacher environment, right? You know, if you're working in a prison, it helps to have somebody who's, you know, an inmate or a guard or someone on the administration staff within the prison who understands the environment, and they can take this practice and work with you and teach you how do you use this in that environment. That's really, so learning from the others.